Hey, my name's Elise Pickett with the Urban Harvest, and I teach folks how to vegetable garden. Here are a few of my favorites that I grow in raised bed gardens. So lettuces are something that most people tend to enjoy in their salads and everything like that, and it's also a nice, easy, compact variety to grow. They tend to like cooler weather, so think springtime or heading into fall, although they aren't frost sensitive. When you're growing them, they can be grown in a small space, so 6 inches or less, which is nice. You can fit a lot in a small space. And there are lots of different varieties. The two main different types are either heading or loose leaf. If you're just getting started, loose leaf tends to be the better option for most beginner gardeners. Another great leafy green to grow in your garden is kale and the leafy greens from the brassica family. It's really familiar for most of us. You might pick it up in the store every week. Why not grow it at home? These are cool weather crops. They really thrive at the very earliest and latest of your crops in the season. Depending on where you are in the country, these can even be overwintered essentially, especially with just a little bit of protection. The nice thing about these kinds of leafy greens is that they are something that you can harvest from the entire season. So if you had a heading lettuce, you cut the whole lettuce and it's gone. With kale, you can simply break off the leaves that you need for your meal and the plant continues growing up. So you could plant it at the beginning of the season, harvest from it all season long over 6 to 9 months, depending on where you live, and never have to replant it. So arugula is another great leafy green to grow, and it's nice because it kind of fills the gap, especially if you're in an area that has more swings in temperature where it gets hot, cold, hot, colds. They don't mind that change in temperature quite as much as, say, lettuce. So it's got that nice peppery flavor, but there's actually two kinds of arugula. So one is rocket arugula. It tends to do even better in warm climates than the garden arugula. It has bright little yellow flowers and a more pungent taste. The other kind of arugula is garden arugula, and it is going to be a little bit more mild, but it tends to like a little bit cooler temperatures. And that one has a little white flower with brown streaks. Something that's kind of fun or different that most people don't think of with arugula is not only can you eat the leaves, but also the flowers as well. They make a beautiful addition to your salads. So dill is a fantastic addition to pretty much any garden. Not only obviously can you eat it and throw it in all of your different meals or whatever, but it's also a really good companion plant. So it will repel things like the cabbage moth. So I always plant it with my cabbage. And once it goes to flower, it is a amazing pollinator attractor. So you will pull in all sorts of pollinators for the rest of your garden just by having dill planted next to it. Cabbage is a nice cool weather crop. It is something that you can store for a very long time. So depending on your growing conditions and the length of your season, this is probably something that you can easily grow enough of to store and use for the majority of the year, whether it be preserving or in cold storage. Cabbage is a fairly low maintenance plant. It does have some pests like cabbage worms and stuff, but various companion planting techniques can usually mitigate that pretty easily. Peppers are a great addition to any garden, whether you eat them or use them for a pest repellent spray. Obviously, there are hot peppers and sweet peppers. Sweet peppers tend to do better in areas that get a little bit cooler or drier. They're very sensitive to nematodes. Hot peppers, on the other hand, could care less. If you plant them next to each other, you'll get the question, are you going to end up with a sweet jalapeno or a spicy bell pepper? The answer is no. That will show up in the next generation if you were to save seed from those peppers. Eggplant is a fantastic warm weather crop. They grow really well all through the summer months and can take the heat with no issues whatsoever. A lot of people think that eggplant are just the round black ones, but there are all different shapes and colors from white to green to pink to purple and everything in between. If you have tried eggplant in the past and it wasn't your jam, it's likely because of the skin. It can make it very bitter. So if you peel your eggplant, it's going to taste much less bitter. Soaking it in a little bit of salt water for 20 to 30 minutes before you eat it also helps with that. Root crops are the perfect thing to grow in raised beds, things like carrots or radishes or turnips. They need really loose soil, which you're going to have in a raised bed. So if you have any sort of soil compaction, these need to be grown in raised beds. Different soil depths depending on what the variety is. If you have nice deep raised beds, you can go for something that's longer, or if it is a shallow raised bed, make sure to look for half long types. Tomatoes are the quintessential garden crop, I think. Everybody thinks about growing tomatoes when they think about planting a garden. For good reason. They're so flavorful and amazing and productive. There's actually two kinds of tomatoes, though. And it's one of those things that you just don't even know to look for. But if you were to ever look at the label or the seed pack, you're going to see the words determinate or indeterminate. Determinate tomatoes are going to come to fruit all at once. They're good for places that are shorter in growing season, or if you're looking to do some sort of preservation where you want a lot of them ready at once. For most of us, though, we're probably going to want to be able to walk out and pick that tomato here and there to throw into our salad throughout the year or throughout the week and the growing season. If that's the case, you want to look for indeterminate varieties, which means you're going to have a small handful of tomatoes ready every few days throughout the growing season. Beans and peas are typically going to be a very easy addition to your garden. There are bush types and vining types. If it's a vining type, make sure to provide it with some sort of trellis to climb up, whether it be, a little store-bought trellis or a big cattle panel, or perhaps even some fencing that's growing near your raised bed garden. It will need something to climb. If you choose to plant beans or peas, make sure to also purchase inoculant. It will greatly increase your yields and production off of those plants.